Hi, welcome, and thank you so much for your servant's heart and being willing to serve at Lakewood Methodist Church. We are honored by your presence, your gifts, your service. We are honored that you're taking this course, and this is a necessary course for us to be able to allow you to serve in any ministry of Lakewood Methodist Church. I know that Jill and James are so excited that you are joining in to do this and working in the student ministry or the children's ministry. And I'm excited for you to be a part of the heart of this church. We are focusing on families and education, and in doing so, you are helping us further the vision of this church that God has set before us. We are so honored again by you. Thank you. Grab your popcorn and sit back. But not for too long, because you may fall asleep. You're going to have to pay attention. Maybe not so much popcorn, because you may not be able to write an answer. Either way, enjoy this video, and thank you again.
Hello and welcome. My name is James Richards. I'm the Director of Student Ministries here at Lakewood Methodist Church.
And I'm Jill Gettler, Director of Children's Ministries.
Thank you for making a decision to lead with children, students, or at-risk adults at Lakewood Methodist Church. Your involvement allows us to work towards our mission of guiding people into a lifestyle centered around Jesus.
This training is important in keeping our vulnerable populations safe and creating the best environment to help them know and follow Jesus. Safe Sanctuary is an abuse prevention training that is required of all adults who work with children, students, and at-risk adults. Lakewood Methodist Church, together with the Eastern Texas Conference of the Global Methodist Church, wants to ensure that adult volunteers and staff are trained in signs and prevention of abuse. Safe Sanctuary covers minors aged 0 to 17, as well as adults who cannot make informed decisions on their own.
In this video, we're going to walk through our Safe Sanctuary policies so you can understand the safety policies and procedures we have in place at Lakewood Methodist Church, as well as be aware of how you need to respond in certain situations. So let's get started.
All volunteers must complete Safe Sanctuary training and a background check annually. Background checks are conducted when you begin serving at Lakewood and are renewed every year. You will watch this video and take a quiz to complete Safe Sanctuary training annually. These background checks reveal criminal offenses but do not entail a credit check. All of the documentation regarding Safe Sanctuary and background checks are kept securely and with the utmost confidentiality, only seen by ministry leaders if an issue arises. We firmly believe that God's grace is active and working in our world and in our lives. Therefore, a criminal offense does not necessarily keep volunteers from serving at Lakewood Methodist Church, but depending on the nature of the offense, may warrant a discussion with the ministry leader. There are some criminal offenses that would prevent someone from working with vulnerable populations at Lakewood.
Within our church community, you may encounter children, students, and vulnerable adults who are victims of emotional and physical abuse. It is important to recognize the signs of each. Before we get started, here are some helpful statistics to know. According to the National Center for Victims of Crime, 1 in 5 girls and 1 in 20 boys is a victim of child sexual abuse. Vulnerable adults are actually 7 times more likely to experience abuse than non-vulnerable adults. More than 90% of people with developmental disabilities will experience sexual abuse at some point in their lives. Physical abuse is generally defined as any non-accidental physical injury to the child and can include striking, kicking, burning, or biting the child, or any action that would result in physical impairment of the child. Signs of physical abuse can include recurring unexplained injuries such as burns, cuts, deep bruises, black eyes, or broken bones, wearing clothing that is inappropriate for the weather or season, unusually alert behavior such as startling easily or expecting something bad to happen, or a fear of going home. Adults giving children drugs or alcohol can also be physical abuse.
People can also abuse emotionally. Emotional abuse is any action that impairs a child or at-risk adult's emotional function. Prolonged isolation or disproportionate removal of playtime or toys are two examples. Other examples of emotional abuse can include insulting or humiliating, using degrading language, excessive sarcasm, especially with young children, or using an overly harsh tone, excluding, isolating, or threatening or purposefully inducing fear. Signs of emotional abuse in victims can include being fearful or anxious about doing something wrong, being withdrawn from friends or peers, low self-esteem, feelings of being worthless. Neglect is also a type of abuse. Neglect is frequently defined as the failure of a parent or other person with responsibility for the child or at-risk adult to provide needed food, clothing, shelter, medical care, or supervision to the degree that their health, safety, and well-being are threatened with harm. Signs of neglect include being dirty or having poor hygiene, poorly fitting clothes or missing clothing items such as shoes or socks, untreated illnesses or injuries, being constantly hungry or tired.
The American Psychological Association defines sexual abuse as any unwanted sexual activity with perpetrators using force, making threats, or taking advantage of victims not able to give consent. Examples of sexual abuse include inappropriate or uninvited touch, commentary about body parts, showing of sexually explicit visual materials, or sexually explicit conversation that evokes discomfort. Signs of sexual abuse in victims include being unusually knowledgeable about sexual or promiscuous behavior, sudden behavior changes, substance abuse, avoiding recreational activities, having trouble walking or sitting, or a strong avoidance of a person or persons without providing a specific reason. It's important to note that sexual abuse can happen without any physical contact. There is a difference between abuse and maltreatment. Abuse occurs when a parent or person responsible for the well-being of a child or at-risk adult inflicts upon them serious physical injury, creates a substantial risk of serious physical injury, or commits an act of sex abuse against them. Maltreatment refers to the quality of care a child or at-risk adult is receiving from those responsible for them. Maltreatment occurs when a parent or other person legally responsible for their care harms a child or at-risk adult, or places a child or at-risk adult in imminent danger of harm by failing to exercise the minimum degree of care in providing the child with any of the following, which could be food, clothing, shelter, education, or medical care when financially able to do so.
You might be asking yourself, what do I do if I suspect abuse? You may see evidence, or you may have even been told directly by a victim that abuse has been taking place. If you suspect abuse based on evidence you see, you can ask the potential victim how that injury happened. Ask open-ended questions and allow the potential victim to talk. If they directly tell you that they are being abused or are in an abusive situation, it is not your job to investigate. It is your job to report. According to the National Sexual Violence Resource Center, statistics show that the percentage of false allegations are extremely low, landing between 2 and 10%. You are legally required to report any suspected abuse within 24 hours to the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. If you fear for a child's safety over the next 24 hours, if they were to return home, you are required by law to call the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services at 1-800-252-5400. When reporting suspected abuse, notify the leader of the ministry in which you are working first. They can help you make the phone call, but they cannot make the phone call for you. Your name can remain anonymous, and you must present only factual information. You can be held liable for purposely reporting false information, including falsely reporting someone as an abuser. It is important that only factual information is shared. If you suspect neglect, but do not fear for the child's immediate safety. You can report it online at www.txabusehotline.org.
Texting is a great and effective tool for communicating with students in our student ministry, but it's important that we follow some parameters to maintain safety. When texting a student, always include another adult on the text. Because adult leaders are often paired with another adult leader when you're working with students, it's easy to just add that other adult leader into your text. You could always add student ministry staff onto the text or a student's parent as well. Stay in constant communication with student ministry leaders about your communications with students. If you have a phone conversation with a student, it's important to let student ministry staff or the parent of that student know. Phone use while volunteering should be limited and primarily for communication with staff and with other volunteers. Much of our lives happens on social media. When thinking about texting or social media direct messages, we want to think about that like a room. We should still never be in a one-on-one space with a student. That is why we do not direct message students on a one-on-one social media platform, and especially on platforms that have disappearing messages like on Snapchat. Whether physically present or on a technology platform like Zoom or social media, we should always be in a group. If you are on social media, they will see your posting. It's also important how we present ourselves in a Christ-like manner on all of our social media platforms. You represent your faith and you model that for students on any social media that you have. How they see you live and act in person and on social media matters.
If you are volunteering for an event and are assigned as a driver, you must fill out the transportation driver application form. Among other things, by signing this form, you acknowledge that in the event of an accident, your personal liability insurance is primary, not the church's. One adult leader may never drive just one student or child alone in a car. At least 2 students or children who are not in your family must be in the car. For example, if a father is driving the vehicle with his son in the car, then there must be 2 other students or children in the car with them. However, an adult can drive 2 students or children to whom they are not related. When driving in caravans, cars should work to stay together within the line of sight to each other. Traveling to and from Lakewood Methodist Church events is a private matter and not subject to the Safe Sanctuary policy. This refers to arriving before an event or leaving after an event. Some other things to keep our protected individuals safe are always observe the 2-person rule, knowing that spouses and family members count as one person. Never be alone with a student or child or at-risk adult, or put another adult in that situation. This is to protect both you and the one you are working with. One person may work with multiple protected individuals as long as they are within the line of sight of other adults. However, at no time will an adult be one-on-one with a protected individual in an isolated or closed situation.
Students occasionally would like to meet one-on-one with a staff or adult leader from the church, and this can be done only under 2 circumstances. One is if you're on the church campus, this can be done in line of sight of another adult. So for example, if a student and adult needed to meet privately in an office, then another adult must be able to see them through a window into that office. This can also be done in a public space with people walking around, such as a restaurant, but it needs to be done with the knowledge of ministry leaders and or the parents. So you need to let ministry staff know that this meeting is taking place.
Never enter the restroom with a toilet-trained protected individual. If they are sick, get the director of the ministry. Hugs should be initiated by the protected individual and only from the shoulders up if dealing with older children and teens. Side hugs are always best. Do not carry children unless it might be required due to injury. This means no piggyback rides. Use discretion with preschool children sitting on laps. That is for children ages 4 and under. Elementary children should never sit in an adult's lap.
We are fortunate to be able to take multi-day trips and retreats with our students. This means students will be showering. There should always be 2 adults monitoring showers within earshot in case there are any problems. Adults should never be in the shower with students, but being in the bathroom to monitor appropriately can happen.
Thank you for giving your time to serve with protected individuals at Lakewood Methodist. Remember that all people are a precious gift, and we are called to shepherd them into knowing God and following Jesus. Following the protocols from the Safe Sanctuary policy creates an environment where everyone can feel safe and focus fully on the relationship with Jesus.